Hey, howdy, hey, awesome people of the internet, Wolfman4 here. So, once again, thank you so much to those of you that gave me some questions for me to answer for this Q&A vlog. As you know, the theme this time is the state of films, so anything to do with films, really, that I'm going to be answering. Those of you that were thinking of sending me questions but have seen this video and therefore think it's too late, do not panic. You can still ask me questions down in the comments and I will answer when I can in my own time. So yeah, now as usual, when I set the rules for the Q&A, the general rules are that I won't be giving you any personal information or tolerate any kind of cyberbullying, because it's just not a thing, not acceptable here on YouTube, and I'm sure other sites have some things in place for that as well. So yeah, so I'm going to answer a few questions now, and then we'll see how we get on. So, first question comes from my very good friend and an inspiration for me to do YouTubing, Clank Zoka. What's the one film that needs a remake? Doesn't matter if it's Disney or not. There are several films that I think need to be remade, but before I talk about them, I need to first of all establish my stance when it comes to that. So when a film comes out, if it does really well, then you know, studios will usually think of ways to sort of continue the franchise, whether it's through other mediums, for other films and everything. And more often than not, some films are just fine just being completely one film. That's it. Move on to the next thing. But then there are some films where we do actually want to see more and see the world expand and everything and so forth. And then in the case of remakes, remakes should only really happen when there's been a long time since the film's since the original film originally come out for it to warrant a remake, and also if there's a reason for it to warrant a remake. Like there's so many underrated films and films that didn't really do too well originally that kind of deserve a remake just on the basis that there's just so much that they could do to make it even better. A couple of remakes that I can think of off the top of my head is two Disney ones, because they're both of these films are films that kind of sort of could work as sort of live action remakes, or hell, even an animated film, but in the style of the current Disney animation that they do these days. And those two films are Atlantis: The Lost Empire and Treasure Planet, because those films came out very underappreciated, didn't do too well at the box office and everything, but has a lot of potential and a lot of good things and a lot of bad things about it. Like Atlantis, great with visuals, great with its visuals and the sort of idea and so forth, but just kind of fails with, I'm not sure, not necessarily everything else, but some things just didn't work. And Treasure Planet, it was a great idea, just sort of combining the Treasure Island book with a sort of sci-fi feel to it, throwing all sorts of different crazy, wonderful ideas. Kind of feels a bit too much like Star Wars in places, but otherwise I thought it was a very solid, very interesting film. Both of them could do with a remake. And I think outside of Disney, I mean, I don't know, there's probably like loads of other films that could be done as remakes as well. It's just that there has to be a certain period of time for it to go past, and I think studios should focus more on remaking the films that are very underappreciated, didn't do too well originally, just to see if they can do better, because just because a film doesn't do too well originally, it doesn't mean that any sequels, remakes, or whatever are gonna suffer the same fate. Let's not forget that with the Angry Birds movie, sure, the first film wasn't really all that good, but then the second film was so much better. So you got to think about that as well. But yeah, that's my answer to that question. So next question comes from World of Me, and I did have to think long and hard about this one. Why are there so many dreadful films now? To be fair, there's not a single year I can think of where there's been like so many dreadful films. Like some years you have lots of great films and not so much bad films. Other years you have a lot of bad films and a few great films, and then there's years where it's kind of like a balance in between. And you have to remember that I just like with Clank Zoka, try to give indie films a chance as well. You know, the films that films that come out, but not many people go to see them because more people are just going to go and see the big blockbuster films and don't really talk about it. Whereas indie films, more people will talk about those films than they would with the big blockbusters, because there's a lot that you can remember from those films compared to the big blockbusters. So you have to bear that in mind. Now, with regards to the question, I think the reason why there are so many dreadful films is because there's a lot of people out there that are kind of sort of lots of studios are sort of thinking that their best bet is to create a lot of sequels, a lot of prequels, remakes and everything because of nostalgia, and that's what brings in the money and everything. And usually most of those films are not very good. But then you do get those few films that actually do succeed in being great films. Like even though many critics have completely dismissed both the Super Mario Bros. Movie and its sequel, lots of people actually really enjoyed it, and those films are not after have any deeper meanings or any sort of stories to follow. It's just a film for fans that love the games and just want to see their favorite plumber sort of on the big screen having nearly anything and everything from the Mario games thrown in for references, good measure, and all that. Even though the films are primarily sort of have a specific game in mind, or have a specific game in mind, Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of the Mario franchise, has made it clear that a direct adaptation of those particular games, so Super Mario Brothers and Super Mario Galaxy, would definitely probably would not do well. Rather instead just have an original idea, but sort of try and follow the sort of setting, scenario, etc. from those games. So to answer your question, there are so many dreadful films that do come out, but you have to give them all a chance. Just because a film doesn't look great doesn't mean that they're going to be bad. I mean, some films are definitely going to be bad regardless of how they look or not. But I wouldn't say there's a single year where you can say that there's just so many dreadful films. There's loads of great films, loads of dreadful films. It's just the way it is. So
Get over
yourself. Okay, moving on. So Matthew Jess 5488, who I work with, who I know in real life, as I do with Clank Zoke and One of Me. Asks, what is your guilty pleasure movie? Something that most people think is rubbish, but you actually love. So, first of all, as many of you will know who have followed this channel for a while, will know that when I do a guilty pleasure let's play or video or whatever, it's usually a game that has some kind of flesh being shown, because as you know, I like seeing a bit of flesh. So but that's not necessarily a guilty pleasure. That's just how I am. But saying that, most people will say that a guilty pleasure is something that many people hate, but you yourself actually love. And yeah, I do have a few of those, which I'm going to share. The first of which is the original Super Mario Brothers film. So it's not called the Super Mario Brothers movie. This is just called Super Mario Brothers. Full stop. I kind of enjoy how silly and ridiculous it is, and also just purely on the fact that it's just so silly, so ridiculous, and it's kind of a way for. And it's kind of like one of those films that actors were kind of tricked into thinking it was going to be a political satire, but it was actually something completely different. And it's nothing to do with Mario at all, apart from having the theme tune and the Mario Brothers and everything. It's just its own thing, but I just kind of like how entertainingly bad it actually is. Another film is Howard the Duck, one of George Lucas's earliest films, and also one of the earliest Marvel adaptations of a character. And I enjoy how stupid and how ridiculous it is, and I've always been quite critical of George Lucas's directing abilities, because no offense to the guy, he's not that great when it comes to directing, but I have to sort of say that not many people talk about his films outside of Star Wars and Indiana Jones, and probably to an extent the Monkey Island games as well. Because he's done more than just those two franchises. It's just that Howard the Duck is probably one that's kind of overshadowed by the franchises, but it's thanks to the success of the Guardians of the Galaxy films that Howard the Duck is, well, the character's taken more seriously, the film still not taken as seriously, but still entertainingly bad. Batman and Robin again, entertainingly bad film. I know a lot of people hate it, but I kind of enjoy how bad it is, the stupid one-liners, the back credit card nonsense, and all that stuff. I know this is probably going to be like a list of films that everyone will say is on their list of guilty pleasures, but that's just some of mine. And one more film, and a couple more that we'll talk about. So, if you're familiar with the channel Awesome Crew, I do quite enjoy watching their anniversary films, only because, ironically, it's kind of a sort of nostalgia for me, and also just watching it now, having known everything that's happened with the company, with all the lies and so forth. It's kind of watching it in an ironic way, sort of trying to understand that all these that even though these things do exist, things happen behind the scenes that some people just want to ignore and move on, but then there's people like me who just heard about it but still continue watching the stuff in spite of it. And I do find them still entertaining despite what happened, in an ironic kind of way. And the last one for me would be The Room, which is a Tommy Wiseau film, for those who don't know. Famously known for being a very, very so bad it's good kind of film. I just enjoy how bad the acting is, how some of these some scenes last longer than others, and how out of all these crazy films that have come out, this is like the one film where people actually enjoy how stupid and how bad it really is, and just want to go and see it and everything as well. So yeah, I'm sure there's probably more guilty pleasures that I have, but those are just ones that I think are like so bad that I just enjoy them for how bad they are. And I actually have all of those films on DVD and or Blu-ray because I just enjoy it so much. So yeah. So next one is from Morningstar Cowboy. I think he was meant to say cowboy, but anyway, we'll move on. What is your opinion on Resident Evil with Mila Djokovic and Underworld with Kate Beckinsale movies, if you have seen them? I have not seen them, so therefore I don't have an opinion of them at the time of doing this vlog, but I will say that of the bits I have seen of all of those two particular franchises, I think Resident Evil definitely deserves a better film series, in the sense that it kind of needs to have a more sort of feel more like the games instead of being whatever those films are. And I know there was like a few fully CGI films to do with Resident Evil that did come out, but they just weren't as well known because they went straight to home media here in the UK. Probably went into cinema in other places, but straight to home media here in the UK. And I don't really know anything about Underworld, so I can't really sort of say anything about it. Sorry, maybe I should have watched them before doing this video, but that's what I think. If I do ever get around to watching those films, then I will of course do a video review of them at some point, probably for Halloween or something, and then I can share what I think about them then. But for now, I've not seen them, so I can't really have an opinion on them. Sorry. So next we have a few questions from Movie TV Fan, and the first of these is, who ultimately decides how a scene should play out? Now, I've seen plenty of behind-the-scenes documentaries and features, often found on DVDs and Blu-rays of certain films, and although there's all these things sort of show people being very passionate about what they do, there's often always these conflicting news reports that say that some things weren't quite as done as they thought behind the scenes. But I think how a scene should play out, it's usually down to the director how a scene plays out. But if the director's not also an executive producer, then it's usually the executive producer that has the final say on how a thing should play out, you know, because an executive producer is kind of more of a higher rank compared to the director, although the director does have the say because he's obviously directing the film, and sometimes the producers will allow the director to do it his or her way, or their way. But then often there's like studio pressure and everything that usually kind of gets in the way, and then you have to and then there's all these things that happen, and yeah. So I think it really depends on the certain scene in question as to who has the final say on how it should play out. And sometimes it's also good to improvise as well. Like there's been a few times where like there's films that have scenes that weren't actually in the script, but they still kept it in the film anyway because it just has that kind of effect. For example, the Jar of Dirt scene from Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, that wasn't in the script. It was just Johnny Depp improvising and just being silly. And the Lego Movie, where Morgan Freeman's character Vitruvius struggles with the script. That's actually was meant to be enacted, but they kind of kept it in the film because it was just hilarious. So yeah, that's what I think about that. Next question from Movie TV Fan: Who hires the actors for roles? I think really it's down to the director and the producers who decide who should be cast in films, and if they want to go for an unknown actor, they'll have like a casting call, or everybody that wants to go and star in the film would go to that casting call, and then they'll just go through the auditions, and then whoever they think is the best, they'll sign them on. And sometimes they usually already have someone in mind already, but then one person comes on, blows them away, and then gets the role as a result of that. And then there's times where someone who they wanted to audition but didn't audition ends up getting the role anyway because they like them too much. And then there's also times where they already have an actor in mind for the role, and if the actor's unavailable, then they'll either try and get the said actor to then they'll either try to sort of work within the schedule of that actor. For example, Michael J. Fox, who at the time he was working on the Back to the Future films, he was also starring in sitcoms, so he had to sort of juggle the two of them, going back and forth between sets, because the original guy that played his character, Marty McFly, was very serious, he was a method actor, very serious, and Steven Spielberg basically fired him because he was so serious. So yeah, it kind of varies, I guess, is what I'm trying to ask there. And the final question from Movie TV Fan, and also the final question in this vlog, unless between recording this and by the time I actually get the video together, there's more. What are the 5 C's in cinematography? So I think this is kind of like a question that should really be used in a quiz sort of thing, not really for a Q&A. But from what I understand, based on what Google tells me, the 5 C's of cinematography, which are foundational principles of visual storytelling, which were outlined by a guy called Joseph V. Massili, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, who said in 1965 that the 5 C's of cinematography are camera angles, so because some camera angles are important, continuity, because lots of people like things consistent and want people to remember things that happened before. Cutting, because films do need to cut things up so they can be condensed into the film that you see at the cinema, and then do an extended cut later on if they need to. Close-ups, I guess, in a way, depending on how a film is performed, and composition as well. This framework provides a practical guide for motion picture filming techniques to ensure coherent, engaging visual communication. So there you go, that's all the 5 C's. So that's all the questions I have at the time of filming this filming this vlog. I'm just going to give my editor a moment to interrupt this video in case there's more questions that have come out. And there you are. That's all I've got to. That's all the questions I've had for this vlog. As I say, fire off in the comments below if you've got any more questions to do with the state of films. Love to answer them. I don't know what the theme for the next Q&A will be, but it will be in the not too distant future. Yeah, probably around, as I've done films today, it will either probably be either video games, TV shows, or books, or something. I'm not sure, but it will certainly be something for sure later down the line, all being well with health and everything. So yeah, but anyway, that's it for this Q&A vlog. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for the questions that those of you have sent me. As I usually sort of do this a week, have the post up a week, the community post up a few weeks in advance, so that questions can come in, so I can get questions ready, and usually from all sorts of different socials I have. So thank you for the questions. Thanks so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you can, please. If you're new to the channel, I do vlogs like these on a Thursday, usually all sorts of different random topics I'm interested in. Monday and Tuesdays I do a gameplay series video, which, hence the name, is part of a series of videos of a game that I'm playing through, which is a long game, alternating between 4 different games at the moment. Every Wednesday I do a let's play of a completely random game, and the rest of the week I do reviews, hauls, rants on life, videos with friends, gameplay compilation videos, shorts, and loads more. Requests are welcome for all those things. Do check the channel description if you want to know more about certain things. So yeah, see you in the next one. Peace to you all. And remember, not every film is bad, not every film is good, and not every film deserves a remake, not every film deserves a sequel, or prequel, or midquel, or concurrent, or praise, or all that stuff. You know, give the smaller films a chance, give the bigger films a chance, maybe after a period of time, depending on how well they've performed, and if you're into that sort of stuff. Also, don't share stuff that is fake. Do not share stuff that's AI, especially AI, because it's not a great art form. And yeah, hopefully, I don't know what the next Q&A will be, but it will surely be something good for sure. So yeah, all right, toodles.